you're doing now and how your MPA degree positioned you for success.
Hi, Professor Cullen. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi.
Happy to chat about that. Nice to see you. So right now, everyone, my name's Eli Lieberman, and my current position, I'm the Director of Clean Energy Financing at Michigan Saves. Michigan Saves is the nonprofit green bank in Michigan. Previous to that, I ran a renewable energy revolving loan fund for the state of Washington, working at the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. The Evans School was very instrumental in where I am now. I sort of left undergraduate kind of unsure of where I wanted to go, knowing that I had this passion for public policy, knowing that I had this passion for public service, knowing that I was really invested in climate change and environmental issues, but just not really sure how to steer those interests and what sort of careers were out there. At the Evans School, I was sort of exposed, I'd say, to the sort of whole board of the environmental policy process and who are the stakeholders and key players. So I was better able to understand, like, what is the role of the federal government? What is the role of the state government? What is the role of local governments? What are the different policy tools that are available at those different levels? How does the private sector fit into all of this? And then that sort of allowed me to sort of see where I thought my skills best matched, and then take classes like Professor Miller was alluding to in the latter half of your time. You have all those electives, so I was able to really pick the electives that I felt fit my interests, and that led me into a job with the state government right out of graduate school, which was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a public servant. And my career's really snowballed from there. And now I'm working closely on the Inflation Reduction Act and all the incredible potential coming out of that piece of legislation. And I feel very fortunate from my time at Evans. Is that helpful, Professor Cullen?
Yeah, and we're super grateful that you're one of our alums. It's always exciting. I should mention now too, as folks move around and through their career, they often call back to their faculty for recommendations and references, and we're always really happy to provide that. So it's been really fun watching your path, Eli, and trying to help you where I can. Jose, why don't you go ahead and talk a bit about how the MPA positioned you for success? And I know you're at Fish and Wildlife now.
Hi,
there you
Allison.
are. Hi,
Jackie.
Great to see you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm very excited to be here. Currently, I'm working for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. A little bit of my background, I study economics. I was working in finance in private companies, in insurance, finance, consumption. And then I joined my career working in finance in other governments in Latin America. Then I went working in international development in Europe and mainly in Africa and Latin America too. And then I decided to join Evans. I decided to study environmental policy, and now I'm budget analyst in the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Right now, I'm senior budget analyst, and that means I have two steps. One step, like in the technical central budget office, like doing regular finance stuff, checking fund balance, checking that we are spending the money correctly. And my second step is like in the budget development cycle. And I'm really excited working in the department doing that, because I support like really great people that I consider the subject matter experts. They are biologists, ecologists, and I think the fun people that I wish I could be like them. They are the really experts. I support them to provide and request all the resources they need to do the job that we do. So
you're the expert on budgets, Jose, so don't sell it short. They need you. They couldn't do what they do without you. And we have a great sequence of budgeting as well that MPA students take as the core, and then they can also do additional courses on budgeting. I wanted to turn to Jamie Zia, current MPA student. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Evans and maybe highlights of coursework, but also of the fellow students and the other kinds of opportunities? Because talking about courses, it can sound a little cookbooky, a little dry, but there's sort of like within that, there's so much potential for people to do additional things and to sort of grow from there. So Jamie, you're in the perfect position right now to tell us, and you just got to hear from two exciting alums, so you can be a little inspired too.
Yeah, thank you so much. I like Allison said, I am a second year right now at the Evans School. So I'm just kind of dipping my toes into all of our wonderful environmental policy electives. It's been completely wonderful. It's when my decision to go to grad school was a lot to do with trying to make connections and get to know, similar to what Eli said, of get to know what possibilities for environmental policy there was for me as a career, and to just kind of know what the people do and what they're like. And it's just been an over the moon experience. The people that you meet in your classes, the professors, they're all very approachable. There's no one that you're like, oh no, I'm afraid they're unattainable, can't go talk to them. Even if you have never had a class with somebody, if you see them walking in the halls, like, very approachable. Everybody's always willing to talk. I'm coming from an environmental science background. So I was more on the side of like, hey, I know what's going wrong with the environment. How can I become an effective communicator? How can I work towards fixing some of our problems? And the Evans School really like seemed like it had the tools for me, and it's kind of gone above and beyond with learning, like we said, different tools of environmental policy, what that would look like in the real world, because we do get a lot of speakers from the local area. That's another reason I really liked Evans, was because we're so ingrained in the city as well. Like everybody always says, you can't throw a baseball around here without hitting an Evans alum, because they're everywhere around the entire Seattle, which is wonderful. So again, it's a big community. And even past just your classmates in your cohort. I will also speak to, Elsa mentioned briefly, Green Evans. I am currently on the board of Green Evans. I'm the communications lead. And sadly, there was a little, I will say very little, because it was still an amazing organization when COVID happened and everything was virtual. They did a very good job of keeping events going, especially networking nights. Wonderful to hear from past alums and ask them questions. Wonderful events like that. But we have been really working hard to also make it more of a social organization too, as well as a professional organization. So we still have all those professional events in the works, but we also have been doing a lot of smaller things here and there, just so that people can get to know each other. First and second years can mingle, and we can just have discussions about what environmental policy means to us, how can we help each other. So like, for instance, we just had a really successful event last week, where we had a clothing and item swap, and it went really well. We're probably going to have 2 more for the next 2 quarters throughout this year, because everybody loved it so much. We had so many clothes being donated, people coming in. I think we had like 35 items that were actually swapped and taken out and saved from being just thrown out. And now we're donating the rest to wonderful organizations around Seattle. So there's a lot of really cool opportunities, that like you can just find yourself. Like I kind of fell into this position just because my friends were like, hey, you should come hang out at Green Evans. I was like, oh, okay. So there's opportunities all around. The community is so wonderful. And Seattle's just gorgeous. I will say that because I'm from Chicago. So I love Chicago too, but environment around here is kind of hard to beat.
Excellent. Thanks, Jamie. We're so proud of you and all our students, and of course our alums. I'll say a little bit about the faculty, and then maybe we'll open it up to some Q&A, and then I've got some more questions for the panelists, but I'd like to let other people get a word in too. So just on the faculty side, we've got a really strong set of environmental policy and management faculty. That is part of how you get the kinds of rankings that we have. And the other part is that you attract great students and they do great things and they graduate and go on to really make a mark. My background is different than some of the other faculty. I have a civil engineering background, and also public health. And then we have faculty who are straight up environmental economists. We have folks who are in political science and think about environmental policy from the policy process itself, and also in resource management. So, fisheries, also agricultural economics and agricultural development, including internationally. So we have really a full sweep of different folks doing different kinds of work in the environmental area. And we're hiring 2 new environmental policy faculty this year, which is really exciting. I'm a co-chair on that search. And so we'll have a couple new faculty as well by the time next fall rolls around. So we've got, a healthy group now, but we'll have an even stronger group moving ahead. And, there's so much I could say, but let's give a chance to some of the folks to, I think it's the Q&A that works best for seeing what the questions are. So yeah, for myself or for the panelists, and I'll give you a chance to write something in there, but maybe while you're thinking about what your question is, I'll add one other piece, which is, I think one of the unique aspects of our program, and I'm watching that Q&A, so put your question in. One of the unique aspects is really that capstone project where we work directly with clients in the community. So students in teams of 3, 4, 5 students at a time, they work as a team and they do a client-based, basically applied research project. And it's super fun. I'm actually teaching it for spring. I'll have 4 teams. We're just finding out now what those teams will be and sort of what they'll be working on. But there's nothing like a real project, all the highs, all the lows, the things that go wrong with the project, as well as the things that go right with it. All of it is such a great experience. So yeah, so just really big shout out to Capstone. All right, what do we have here? We've got some questions. Have you seen students combine environmental policy with credits from urban planning? Okay, that's an awesome question. I'm going to start on that one, and then I'll let panelists also, if they would like. Our environmental policy students take credits all over campus. Definitely urban planning, but forestry, marine affairs, the law school. We get some people in the business school occasionally. Atmospheric science, we've got people doing the program on climate change certificate right now. So yeah, for sure, urban planning, but I would say it's one of many things that folks do. And the 12 credits that count towards your degree, some people say, well, I want to do more than 12 credits in another part of campus. They just go above and beyond. They just take some additional ones as well, which is totally fine. And many people graduate with some extra credits because they just want to make the most of the opportunity while they're in there. Eli, Jose, or Jamie, anything you want to add about courses you've taken in other parts of campus?
I kept it pretty pure and stayed within the Evans School throughout my entire career. But I do know plenty of people, some of my best friends that came out of school, like Professor Cullen was saying, took classes within the forestry school, and then also within the possibly it was fisheries. I myself did I was a teaching assistant though in the poli-sci department at the undergraduate level, so that was another opportunity for me to venture a little bit outside of Evans. So I got to work with undergrads, and that was another possibility.
Nice. Jose or Jamie, anything you want to add? Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say something very similar. I decided to just focus on environmental policy, to be honest. So I stayed most of my time in Evans. But yeah, definitely. I know and I work with several people in urban planning and several folks who went as well with the forestry school. That is another really top school. So very similar.
Great. And I'll just say in my class right now, it works the other way too. I've got about 7 or 8 students from the rest of campus that come into our environmental policy classes and liven us up a little bit. We got some people in there from public health and forestry and marine affairs. So it's pretty fun. Jamie, do you want to add anything or?
Yeah, sure. Just short. I was taking a school in the School of Marine and Environmental Affairs, SMEA. So I took one in there. It's great. It was really good to meet new people too outside of our program. That also, like you said, happens. I have a bunch of people in that school now in my environmental policy class. So it's wonderful from that. I also know one of my really good friends is getting a dual degree in urban planning and at the Evans School, and she loves both programs. She says they're both great.
Great, thanks. Let's see, we have, what are some of the jobs that become available with an MPA? And you've heard from 2 folks who are showing you what jobs are available with an MPA. I mean, our students, some people fall in love with Seattle and they stay, but we've definitely got people further afield in Washington State and then at the national level, and some folks go international, including for like World Wildlife Fund, for the Gates Foundation, and they work overseas. But it's the full sweep. I mean, we've got people at Seattle Public Utility, we've got folks at Department of Transportation, and, the kinds of jobs. We've got policy analysts who really like that quantitative side of what we do, but, folks learn how to manage people, manage budgets, manage projects, and that happens everywhere. So you can go anywhere with those sorts of skills. If you can if you can manage people and projects, yeah, there's full range. And some folks, come into environmental policy to take a few classes, but they then also want to focus on budgeting or financial management or other sorts of tools. So they do come in and out of environment as well, depending, or they just want to broaden a bit. Let's see, can admitted students in the school apply for the law school or complete joint degrees? Yeah, the answer is yes. There are a number of joint degrees that you can complete, and the only requirement is that you must be admitted by both schools. But if you're admitted at Evans, then you can reach out and try for others as well. I guess I just always ask people, think hard about what you really want to do in terms of getting that credential, because for some people, doing additional coursework and sort of having the skills is worth just as much. If you really want to put in the time and get a second degree, I mean, it is an investment of your time, your future. So it's a trade-off, you've got to decide if you really want multiple degrees or if you just want the skills that come with it. Yeah. Other thoughts on the panel about those? Oh, we've got quite a list of questions here. Okay. Should we just keep going down the list? Maybe we should. Yeah, we've got a great list here. Any thoughts with regards to the evening part-time program versus full-time? Dr. Miller may have some ideas about that as well. I'll just say from my point of view, if you're in my class, I don't always even know whether you are going part-time or full-time. The fact that you're, like right now, my environmental risks and values class, some of the students in there are probably just doing the straight up 2-year degree and others are taking longer. They may have other things going on. They may be working more. They may have a family. So I think it's what works for the person. A lot of people want to kind of get through it and get out the door and focus on career full time, but others really are already enmeshed in career and want to spread it out more. Dr. Miller, do you want to add anything to that one? It just seems like it's
add that the curriculum is the same for part-time and full-time. So the 72 credits, the core classes, your opportunities for electives, your opportunities for internships, they all remain the same, whether you're full-time or part-time. Part-time students tend to come in the evening because they have to work. So the important part is that work-life balance and what works for you.
Yeah, and as far as capstone goes, in winter and spring, we have capstone classes both in evening and in day. I'm teaching an evening one, but I'll have students in there who are full-time students. They just happen to want a project that was in the evening class. So it's, there'll be a mix. You won't always be with people who are doing exactly what you're doing. Let's see, how does the quarter system impact one's study? I'm going to definitely turn to the panel in a second about this one compared to study at more traditional. I'll just quickly say, my previous faculty position was at Harvard, which was on a semester system. I was in the environmental health program in the School of Public Health. And, a 16-week class is very different than a 10-week class. But when you've got 10-week classes, you get 3 sort of rounds per year. So there are, there's just an opportunity to sort of take something, really focus on it, wrap it up, move on to the next thing. 16 weeks can seem really long sometimes. 10 weeks never seems long. It always feels like you're left wanting to go on to the next thing and learn more. Your friends might have different spring breaks than you do. I guess I'll throw that in. So Eli, Jose, and Jamie, what have you got on what the difference is compared to more traditional?
Yeah, I'd say first on the evening versus part-time, Professor Cullen, as you were alluding to, how you wouldn't know if someone was evening versus part-time. I appreciated that mingling. As a student, I was full-time, but some of my friends were part-time. And I felt like that brought like a real breadth of like life experience, because full-time maybe sort of tended towards those who are a little newer in their careers, and part-time maybe towards those who had families or maybe a little later. So I really appreciated like getting that life experience in the class and liked how the two mixed. In terms of the quarter versus the semester, I came from a semester. So that first quarter, I'd say was like, oh boy, like things come quick. And I feel like in the semester system, you have like syllabus week, you like, ease yourself into the semester. On the quarter system, it's like, you have that, there's no syllabus week. You kind of get right into the material. But I adjusted, you adjust to it very quickly. Like it's not a hard adjustment. And as Professor Cullen was alluding to, the benefit is that you get just the opportunity to take more classes and there is less fluff. You're just getting right into the material. You really study it hard and then you move on to the next subject. But adapting is not difficult if you're coming from a semester.
Thanks, Eli. Jose or Jamie, do you want to add anything on quarter system?
Yes, definitely. I studied as well my college by semesters, so the change was interesting, excited change. And as well, most of the time I studied remote in the middle of the pandemic, even though I don't regret, I moved to Seattle and I was studying here. And actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about the racial question, about what are some of the jobs that become available with an MPA. I want to say, like, definitely there are a few cities in the US and probably all around the world so exciting and so innovative as Seattle. So here we have some of the leading companies, private companies, as well, nonprofit organizations, and definitely few places have like a strong institutions and organizations in the public sector, like Washington State and Seattle. So definitely, I don't regret. I had the opportunity to move to Seattle to study the MPA here and all the opportunities, like job opportunities that I had here.
Thanks, Jose. Jamie, your experience with the quarter system.
Yeah. And I guess I'll segue off of Jose's one point really quick of just jobs in general, because obviously I'm still in the program. I do not have a job yet. But one thing that's lovely about the program is the required internship in the middle if you do not have the 400-hour professional requirement. So I actually got an internship with the Environmental Protection Agency, and I extended that through the fall as well. And so that was one thing that I was worried about going to grad school, if there wasn't, like, because we talk about how local everything is, and like I said, stones throw away, everybody's here. But there's still a lot of opportunity, a lot of people looking for people with our skills in a more national sense, if that's what you're interested in. So that's also an option. For the quarter system, yes, it is very jarring coming from a semester system, but it is really, it's not bad. It's just different. The best piece of advice I got going into it was a quarter system is a sprint, not a marathon. So you really have to, you got to plan ahead. You got to know where your assignments are, but that's also just grad school in general. There's a lot going on. It's an intense program. So just like making sure your time management skills are on point, especially for that first quarter, so you're not as like stressed out by the time the next one comes around. But yeah, it being able to take so many classes and get so many different experiences with professors and other classmates. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Jamie. And that's a really great segue into the next question, which is about what percentage of the students are coming straight from undergrad versus more established. You know, it waxes and wanes. We have the full sweep. There are people who come successfully right out of undergrad who really know what they want and they've got something in mind. We have people who come back after 2, 3, 5, 10 years, even longer. And then we also have some other programs for people who've been very established, who've been out even longer. But you know, we get the full range, which really helps in the classroom, because people who can bring work experience into the classroom really, really help us stay grounded in what's going on out there. We don't want to just sit around inside a building and talk about environmental policy. We want to be thinking always about how we apply it and what's going on outside. And so having those work experiences come in is great. And then, you know, everyone is doing a capstone. So everyone is working outside while they're in the program. And a lot of them are doing internships as well. But I think the other part of the question is interesting. Is there an advantage to working first versus applying without work experience? You know, we're looking for people who have a demonstrated commitment to public service. Some folks have that coming right out of undergrad. They've already been demonstrating that and been engaged. Other people are looking to move to that, and they may want to set up some experiences for themselves to have that before they come. But, you know, we do take people from right out and also people who are pretty established. And there's a nice mix on the other end. So if you come in, you're not going to feel like you're the only person coming straight out, or that you're the only person who's been out for 10 years. Like they're all there. They're all there with you. So I'm happy to hear from the panelists about that as well. Your experience, I mean, you probably saw the full range in your classes, because I'm seeing the full range. Any thoughts about coming straight out versus getting some work experience?
I think it definitely depends on the person. Like it's all about kind of knowing yourself and what obviously it's hard. It's hard to know what to do with your career when you feel like fresh baby face. But trying to get a grasp of what you think you want, because that was a big thing for me as well, was trying to decide what I wanted to do right out of graduation. I had like, I guess, the unfortunate situation of graduating in spring of 2020. So there was not a lot of job opportunities, but there was a lot of time. So I had been thinking about going to grad school and also law school and just a whole lot of things. It is a big commitment. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. And so I wanted to go into the workforce first, but because that wasn't really an option, it was kind of like, okay, how do I do this? So I volunteered virtually. I spent time trying to get to know people through new platforms, and it ended up being very impactful for me. I did that for about a year, and I'm getting a job through that for a little while, and decided, yes, okay, I think I do want that extra education because I was coming from science. I think I need the more policy administration side. So I think that helped me make that decision more. As well as the weird world situation. But it's totally dependent on the person. And it's kind of something that you have to think about for yourself of like, where do I want to be at this point in my life? And it's a very hard question. It's really, that's why as many times as you ask it, you're probably going to get a different answer.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I think the people who graduated that year too are they're especially joyful to be with other people and that we're all in person now. So yeah, Jose, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, in my experience, well, I am one of the person that don't really know what to do in life. Like there are some people who really know themselves. I really knew I wanted to work in public issues, but to be honest, I love a lot of things. Like I really like public finance, environmental policy, social innovation, and I was like, so I take the time when I was in the school, like to figure out my mind and try a little bit of everything, and then I decided to focus on environmental policy. But I will say as well, the school and the city as well, again, is a great place to figure out your goals in your life, to know and to learn about yourself. One of the things I really enjoy was sharing with the folk from the school and trying to meet people as well in the city. And I always meet great people around, like experts in many things, in many topics. And I fall in love with environmental policy, and I fall in love like with the state and with the city, like the culture about the outdoor culture here. So I really fall in love with that. And so far, this isn't like my first job in my life in environmental policy. I mix it a little bit with public finance because that was my background. I feel really confident on that. So I tried to mix it. It was a perfect match for me, but I'm still learning about myself. So I will say the school and the city bring a lot of tools for every folk.
Thanks, Jose. Eli, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think I would echo what Jose was saying, where there are those people that sort of know where their career is heading, and they can come into Evans, select those electives that's going to really hone that skill, and then take it to the next level. Where I think I was a little bit more like Jose, where I had this passion for the environment, the passion for public service, but I was a little directionless. I thought I was leaning more towards like environmental advocacy, especially around like wilderness and land conservation. But as I got into school and I got exposed to all these different types of courses like finance and environmental policy, I was like, oh, actually, this is more interesting to me. This really clicks with me more. And then I left Evans, and now my career is in finance, working in clean energy. So it's amazing how I just, having that suite of courses available to me, changed my career. So I think it really works for both. And then I'd also say there's pluses and minuses to both as well, where if you're coming out of undergrad, I think you naturally roll into graduate school maybe a little bit easier, where I had to like remember how to study again, remember how to take exams again, where some people who are coming right out of undergrad, it's just like, they just knew how to do it. And then on the same time, for people who have a little more work experience, maybe some of the management courses are a little more like applicable to you because you've been in a work setting, maybe you've managed someone before, and now all of a sudden you know are getting exposed to tools to be a better leader. Where if you're right out of undergrad, you might not have that work experience. So I think, yeah, I think there's pluses and minuses to both, but neither is better or worse.
Yeah, thanks. I think those are all really valuable reflections. And as I say, we do see the full sweep. So yeah, wherever you're coming from, you would not be the only one going that way. I don't see other questions in the Q&A, so maybe we'll just pose one of our own for a few minutes. I want to pick up on something that Jose said first, though, about the outdoor opportunities here. This is an amazing state. So for folks who are coming from other places, I think we're the only state that has like glaciated mountain peaks, but we also have a rainforest in our state. I mean, we have a desert too, all in Washington. So, whatever ecosystems you're interested in studying or living in or experiencing, there is such a range in Washington state. Eastern Washington is a desert. It's very dry. That used to be the only place where wildfires were happening. Now, unfortunately, we have a much bigger footprint of wildfire. Oh, he's got his ski boots there. Yeah, you can do every kind of skiing in Washington state. So a lot of our environmental students, a lot of our students in general are very outdoor oriented. A lot of the people around Seattle really like their outdoor recreation. There's a lot of boating, there's a lot of skiing, hiking, backpacking. Yeah, so it's a nice spot for exploring all those sides of yourself too. There's ocean, there's lakes, there's everything. I think for the panelists, maybe if you could reflect just on what was something that surprised you or inspired you at Evans that you weren't expecting when you came in. You knew you were coming in for an MPA, you knew something about the kinds of classes you were getting, but what was something that was sort of different? Yeah. Who's got an idea about that?
I don't think I was expecting the friendships that I ended up making. Shockingly, it's incredible how close I am with my cohort from graduate school. I mean, some of them I'd say are my best friends like my whole life. So I feel very fortunate for that. And then, yeah, and as everyone's been alluding to, that I wasn't anticipating how great the networking would be afterwards. How open, the Evans cohort is to, just that cold email. Hey, I'm just graduating from Evans. I'm interested in this. I see, you have a successful career there. Can we meet up for coffee? And just you always get a yes. No one's ever said no to me. And now I do the same for every time someone emails me. So I think there's just a really good culture there. So I wasn't anticipating that. So I've been really, really happy with that.
Other things that surprised, and that's a great one, Eli. I mean, the class of 1999, I know it seems like a million years ago, but about 10 of them just came to town last week as part of that 60th anniversary of Evans. And they went to the Big Time Brewery and they toured around, but they went hiking, they did a bunch of stuff, but they're just so close. And they came from all over the country, literally all over the country. Jose or Jamie, I don't know if you've got one. And then I noticed there's a couple more questions in the chat bar now that showed up in the Q&A.
Okay, I want to say something.
Sure.
And it's when I was deciding to go to grad school, I am an international student. So I was deciding going to the US, Europe. So I had this surprise in everything. And I mean, by everything is that I had to study here in the middle of the pandemic. So that changed everything as well at that time, because I was admitted and then was the pandemic in March. So I didn't know if I should move to the US and Seattle, for example. And I want to say, I was surprised. And I'm surprised, in how Jackie said, we are a public institution. We are in tribal land as well, for example. And definitely every place is going to have challenge. But what I was surprised is how we in Seattle and in the Washington state approach those challenges, how we value really the subject matter experts, how we listen to communities, and how we try to work with those communities. So I want to say, there are really few examples in the US trying to implement collaborative approach, community-based approach, in projects with communities. And that's something really unique from few states and few cities and few places all around the world. So I have been surprised, and I don't even regret I decided to come to Seattle in the middle of the pandemic, for example.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And actually, I'll just leverage that for a second, and then we'll turn it to Jamie because she's got a specific question in the chat. But it says, do environmental activists take this program? And as Jose reflected, the Evans School is thinking hard about the community and what's happening in the community, what the disproportionate burdens of environmental pluses and minuses are, and how those are distributed in the community, and how to face those environmental injustices. And so, yes, we completely have environmental activists in this program. We have students who have tried to support the Duwamish tribe in their quest to get nationally recognized as a tribe. We have people who've worked in the community and continue to do that and will always do that. And then those who are straight up activists. Everyone goes through our core. So whether environmental activism is your path or whether it's environmental finance or something else, you'll have that core. You'll know how to do analysis, how to do decision-making, how to manage people, manage projects, and so forth. All of that is a strength, whether or not you're going down an activism path. And you'll know sort of something about what the role of different kinds of environmental approaches are. Activism has its own strengths and trade-offs, and other approaches as well have their strengths and trade-offs. So the answer is yes, and activists do take the program, but the answer was also that activists and everyone else who's not necessarily straight up environmental activism, they have that common experience of like a real grounding in the tools of how do things get done? How do people change their minds? How does a bill become a law? Like how does the world work in terms of making progress on environmental challenges? So yeah, maybe more than you intended, but that's a bit of an answer to that one. Question for Jamie, why did you decide to get an MPA instead of going to law school?
Sure, that's a really good question. I'm going to tell the story of the one specific line that kind of completely changed my mind, because I was pretty convinced of law school. I figured I would have some time in between, but I was pretty convinced of law school, probably mainly because I see on TV and movies of like, oh, all the people in charge all have law degrees, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I think I was a little more convinced in that, and people talk about a lot, when you're thinking of policy, it's hand in hand. But in my undergrad, actually at the very basic environmental policy class I ever took, we had a lobbyist come and speak to us, an environmental lobbyist. And so we were asking her all these questions of how did you get this job? Because we're children, we don't know how to get a job. And we're like, do you have law degrees? Do all of you and your partners have law degrees? And she was like, no, actually only one of us does. And she said, the thing that like kind of unites all of us is that we've actually all worked on campaigns before. You don't really granted, this is just one person, but she said, you don't really need a law degree, an environmental law degree, unless you want to be the person actually physically writing the laws. And so if you're really down with the nitty gritty of trying to figure out the nuances of every single word you write and every single thing, that is the job for you. Otherwise, that there are other options. And so that stuck with me because I kind of hate writing. I'm more of a numbers gal, right? I was environmental science, more in that way. I'm also dyslexic, so that's just another thing. But it just kind of bumped with me. I was like, oh, I don't want to sit in an office and just write and think about the language of like a sentence for the rest of my life. Like I'll go crazy. So that kind of spurred the idea of like, okay, well, I know I probably need grad school, but what else is there? Like I only really know about law school. So I started looking into MPPs and MPAs, and I realized, oh, there's some things that kind of give you a lot of different tools. And that's exactly why I chose Evans, because the MPA gives you this economics background, finance, policy, and like you can take classes in other schools if you want to bump up your science, if you want to bump up your law. So it just felt like the perfect, like kind of like a Swiss Army knife of a toolkit to take anywhere. And bringing it back to that question of what surprised you about Evans, probably the most surprising thing to me is how much I love economics. Like I took economics in undergrad and I didn't think that I would love it this much. Like We just got a lot of our capstones, so we're just starting that process. It's very exciting. And I actually am in a capstone that requires a cost benefit analysis, which is all econ, and a budget, which is all finance. So that's extremely intimidating to me because I'm not like as familiar with it, but I've grown to love it through all these classes. So that's why I kind of put my name in the hat for those. Name in the ring, hat in the ring, you know what I mean. So that's kind of where I was coming from, of like, okay, I know that I want to influence policy, I want to help make decisions, but I don't want to actually sit down and write stuff like that. That's the bane of my existence. How I don't want to be doing that for 3 years. Let's find another path to doing that, because there are a lot of paths, right? Environmental stuff in general is huge. I like, just really another quick thing. My undergrad like kind of journey went from environmental studies to environmental engineering to environmental science. So I hit every path on the way to get to environmental policy where I am now, because there's just so many things. It's our whole planet. So there's not a wrong answer. It's just about finding your strengths. My strengths are not sitting at a table writing. My strengths are more, let's look at some numbers. Like right now at the EPA, I do data stuff. So I'm working on data visualization. So geographic information system, making maps, and also working on the policy side of that, of how can we help the regulation and the enforcement. So it's weird how like trial and error just kind of gets to your niches, but that's just kind of my journey. So it's a very long-winded answer, but it's kind of the whole reason I'm here. So yeah.
No, really appreciate that, Jamie. And you said something about the capstone matching. So I'm going to hit that just quickly. And that goes with the question about what kind of support is there for the internship search. So Jamie was interested in a certain kind of capstone. You know, we get 40 or 50 clients that come to the school and say, we really want a team of students, and they don't all get a team. We match a certain number, and the students get to say which ones they are interested in. So it's a big matching exercise. I think the entire class of about 200 people, everyone got their first or second choice out of those 40 or 50 projects. So that's pretty amazing. There's a real dedication to trying to match you with something that you really want to do. And that's slightly related to the what kind of support is there for the internship search, which was the other question in the Q&A here. So we have a portal for potential employers to post positions, including internship positions. But we also, as faculty at the school and the staff at the school, we have connections all around town with lots of internship opportunities. So there are jobs that get posted because clients come to us and say, look, we're looking for interns. And anything that's public, that's for the city, the county, the state, those are pretty well paid internships. They are not internships where you don't get paid. You know, I really love the fact that it's very transparent. They post it, they say what the hourly rate is, they say what the deadline is. There's no like backdoor, everybody's in there together. And so it's a really nice process for helping people get the internships. And nobody asked about it, but career services, same thing. We have a lot of potential employers. They post their positions with us. We put them in that portal. All of our students can look at it. And then the faculty, you know, they know those employers. A lot of those were their students 10 years ago, you know, so it comes back around again. So there's a really strong alumni network, and our students literally are everywhere. If you put out, you know, 150, 200 students a year, they're everywhere. So yeah, they definitely hire back, and we're really proud of them. So Dr. Miller, I don't know if there was something you wanted to say as a closing word, but I'm just going to say thank you so much to the panel and how proud I am of our alums and our current students, because really they're spectacular and they have such an impact. They really do.
Well, thank you. I was just enjoying the conversation. I was just typing in the chat box over there. I'm really enjoying this conversation. So thank you, Dr. Cullen, and to our panel. Thank you for taking the time to engage with us, to engage with our prospective students, to share your experience both in the program and after. It was a wonderful opportunity. For our prospective students who have joined us this evening, thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation and the information that was shared. You are welcome to connect with us at any time. If you go back to our evans.uw.edu website, and I can put the link in the chat, you are welcome to attend upcoming events. We have another upcoming event that's in person on November 16th, which is our prospective student open house. And if you're in Seattle or will be in Seattle during that time, we would love to have you on campus where you'll have an opportunity to talk to our faculty, staff, students, current students, and alumni. So thank you everyone for taking your time to spend this evening with me. This session is being recorded and has been recorded and will be posted as soon as we can turn it around. So thank you.